In the 41st millennium, there are no gods, only the cold machinery of imperial truth, the genetic mastery of the emperor's vision, and the brutal calculus of conquest. The Great Crusade had reclaimed thousands of worlds in his name, and the Primarchs, those demigod sons of the master of mankind, had become legends whispered across the stars. Yet what happens when something truly divine, something forged not in gene labs but in the fires of genuine myth, falls screaming from the immaterium into a reality that has no place for it? The answer would be written in blood across the surface of Monarchia. If you crave stories of cosmic collisions and impossible heroes facing the architects of the Imperium itself, smash that subscribe button. The Emperor protects those who bear witness to the Dark Millennium, and you'll want to see every moment of what comes next. The sky above Monarchia burned, not with the flames of orbital bombardment, not yet, but with the unnatural shimmer of reality tearing itself apart. The word-bearers had built this city as a monument to faith, a towering testament of marble and gold dedicated to the God Emperor. Its citizens knelt in prayer as the heavens split open like a wound, and something impossible fell through. Lorgar Aurelian, Primarch of the 670th Legion, stood upon the steps of the great cathedral when the rift appeared. His enhanced eyes tracked the falling object. No, not an object. A man. Wrapped in lightning that was not lightning, wreathed in a golden aura that made even his gene-enhanced vision ache to perceive it. The figure struck the plaza with enough force to shatter the marble flagstones in a perfect circle, sending a shockwave that knocked mortal soldiers from their feet. The word-bearers raised their bolters instinctively. Lorgar raised his hand, staying their fire. "Hold," the Primarch commanded, his voice carrying the weight of absolute authority. "Let us see what manner of thing has fallen from the sky." The crater smoked, the dust cleared, and from the impact site, a man rose to his feet. He was massive, not Primarch massive, but larger than any mortal human, standing perhaps 8 feet tall with a physique that seemed carved from bronze and divine inspiration. His skin bore the tan of Mediterranean sun, his black beard was braided in the ancient Grecian style, and his dark eyes held the weight of centuries. He wore a lion's pelt across his shoulders, its mane golden even through the dust, and carried a club of olive wood that should have shattered on impact, but remained pristine. Blood ran from a cut on his brow, divine ichor that glowed faintly gold before darkening to mortal red. The man touched the wound, wincing, then looked up at the assembled word-bearers with an expression caught between confusion and warrior's assessment. "What sorcery?" he began, his voice a deep rumble that carried across the plaza. Then his eyes found Lorgar, and he stopped. Recognition flickered across his features, not of the individual, but of the type. You have the bearing of a king, a warlord." He straightened, rolled his shoulders, testing his body. "Tell me, lord of this strange land, what realm have I fallen into? What gods hold dominion here?" Lorgar descended the steps slowly, his golden armor gleaming in the unnatural light, still emanating from the closing rift above. Around him, the word-bearers maintained their cordon, bolters trained on the stranger. The Primarch's psychic senses probed outward, trying to understand what stood before him. What he felt made his breath catch. Power. Not the corrupt taint of the warp, not the Xenos resonance of alien technology, but something else entirely. Something old and primal, a kind of divine essence that predated even the Emperor's rise. It felt like myth made flesh, like the stories his foster parents had told him on Colchis given form and substance. "I am Lorgar Aurelian," the Primarch said carefully, Primarch of the Word-Bearers Legion, servant of the Emperor of mankind. You stand upon Monarchia, jewel of the Imperium in the 32nd millennium by Terran reckoning. He paused, choosing his words with the precision of a scholar warrior. There are no gods here, stranger. Only the imperial truth, the understanding that mankind must stand alone, guided by reason and the Emperor's vision. The stranger's expression shifted through surprise, disbelief, and finally settled on grim amusement. He laughed, a sound like thunder rolling across mountains. "No gods?" He gestured at himself, at the glowing blood still dripping from his brow. "Then what am I, king of this Imperium? I am Hercules, son of Zeus, champion of Olympus, bearer of the 12 labors and slayer of the Hydra." His eyes hardened. "I have walked with gods, fought gods, and yes, killed gods when they proved themselves tyrants. And you tell me they do not exist?" Lorgar's hand moved to the Crozius Mall at his belt. Around the plaza, the word-bearers' targeting systems locked on, but the Primarch did not give the order to fire. His mind raced through possibilities, through the theological implications of what stood before him. "You speak of myths," Lorgar said softly. "Ancient Terran legends from before Old Night. But those are stories, stranger. Metaphors and allegories. The Emperor has shown us the truth. There is no divinity, only science we do not yet understand." Hercules stepped forward, and despite the 100 bolters aimed at him, despite facing a Primarch of the Legiones Astartes, there was no fear in his movement. Only the confidence of someone who had faced down the Nemean lion with his bare hands, who had held the weight of the heavens upon his shoulders. "Science?" The demigod's voice carried an edge now. "Is it science that lets me hear the prayers of those who called my name? Is it science that has kept me alive for 3,000 years? Is it science that allows me to do this?" He struck the ground with his club. The impact sent cracks spiraling through marble 60 feet in every direction. The shockwave knocked mortal soldiers sprawling, and even the ceramite-clad word-bearers staggered. Lorgar himself had to brace against the force, his boots scraping backward across stone. When the dust cleared, Hercules stood unscathed, his club resting on his shoulder. His eyes met Lorgar's across the crater he had just created with casual strength. "Your imperial truth may rule this place, King," Hercules said quietly. "But I am living proof that it is a lie. The gods exist, and now one of them stands before you." The word-bearers opened fire. Bolter rounds exploded against divine flesh in a thunderous symphony of controlled violence. Each mass-reactive shell was designed to penetrate ceramite armor, detonate inside the target, and reduce even enhanced physiology to bloody ruin. A standard human would have been vaporized, and Astartes would have been staggered, wounded, potentially killed. Hercules caught the first volley across his chest and roared. The Nemean lion's pelt flared with golden light, absorbing impacts that should have shredded muscle and bone. Rounds sparked and ricocheted, their fury turned aside by hide that had once turned the sharpest blades of ancient Greece. But not all. Several shells found exposed flesh, his arms, his legs, his face. They detonated. Blood sprayed. The demigod stumbled backward, golden ichor mixing with mortal red as his divine regeneration fought against weapons designed to kill gods of a different kind. Pain lanced through him, real, immediate, shocking pain. Whatever this place was, it could hurt him. "Cease! Fire!" Lorgar's command cut through the chaos like a blade. The word-bearers obeyed instantly, their discipline absolute. Smoke drifted across the plaza. Through it, Hercules stood, wounded but upright, his chest heaving, his eyes blazing with fury that had once cowed the gods of Olympus themselves. "Is this how you greet strangers in your empire?" Blood ran from a dozen wounds. But even as Lorgar watched, they began to close. Slowly, laboriously, not with the instant restoration Hercules was accustomed to, but healing nonetheless. With treachery and cowards' weapons, Lorgar's expression remained calm, though his mind raced with implications. The stranger had survived a volley that should have killed him 3 times over. The pelt had turned aside the majority of the fire, but even where shells had found flesh, the damage was insufficient. This was no mere human, no matter how enhanced. "You demonstrated hostile capability," the Primarch replied evenly. "We responded appropriately, but you yet live, which suggests you are more than you appear." He gestured, and the word-bearers lowered their weapons but did not stand down. "You claim to be divine. You claim to be this Hercules. Prove it. Face me in single combat and show me if Olympian gods can match the Emperor's work." Hercules spat blood, wiped his mouth with the back of his hand, and smiled, a grin full of violence and anticipation. Finally, a challenge spoken like a warrior, not a schemer. He shifted his stance, club rising. "I have faced hydras and giants, warlord king. Let us see what manner of champion this emperor of yours has bred." The word-bearers formed a circle, their movements precise and ritualistic. This was the ancient way, trial by combat, judgment rendered through strength and skill. Lorgar removed his ornate armor plating piece by piece, handing each component to his gene-sons with reverent care. Beneath, he wore the simple robes of a Colchisian priest-scholar. Even unarmored, the Primarch was magnificent. Over 10 feet of genetically perfected human engineering, muscle and sinew woven with purpose by the Emperor's own hand. His movements held perfect economy, the grace of a master combatant merged with transhuman reflexes. He drew no weapon, his bare hands would suffice. They circled each other in the center of the plaza, 2 figures from different mythologies about to collide. Hercules moved first, 3,000 years of combat experience compressed into a single explosive charge. His club swung in a brutal arc designed to crush skulls and shatter shields. It had broken the back of the Cretan bull, had shattered the bronze plating of Carcass. It carried the weight of divine strength behind every strike. Lorgar caught the club mid-swing. The Primarch's hands closed around the olive wood, his transhuman strength meeting demigod fury. The impact sent a shockwave rippling outward, cracking marble beneath their feet. For a moment they stood locked, neither giving ground. Then Lorgar twisted, redirected, and threw. Hercules flew 15 feet, tumbling through the air with the helpless momentum of someone who had underestimated their opponent. He hit the ground hard, rolled, came up in a crouch with his eyes wide with shock and something else. Respect. Fast, the demigod acknowledged, rising to his feet. Stronger than you look. Good. He didn't reach for his club. Instead, he came forward with his bare hands, shifting into the pancration stance that had been old when Rome was young. If the warlord wanted to wrestle, Hercules would show him how the Greeks had invented the art. They collided like thunderclaps. Fist met palm. Lorgar's strike could shatter ceramite. Hercules caught it and redirected, spinning inside the Primarch's guard to drive an elbow toward his ribs. Lorgar flowed like water, evading by inches, countering with a sweep that would have shattered mortal legs. Hercules jumped, kicked off the Primarch's chest, flipped backward and landed already moving forward again. The exchange accelerated. Blow and counterblow, grapple and reversal. Two warriors operating at the peak of their respective capabilities. Lorgar's gene-crafted perfection gave him speed and precision beyond mortal limits. Hercules's divine heritage gave him raw power and instincts honed across millennia. They were matched. A Primarch's fist caught Hercules across the jaw, snapping his head sideways. The demigod tasted blood, grinned through it, and delivered a punch that sent Lorgar staggering backward 3 steps. The Primarch's enhanced healing was already addressing the cracked ribs. Hercules's split knuckles were already knitting closed. Around them, the word-bearers watched in absolute silence. Their gene-father, a being crafted by the master of mankind himself, was fighting as an equal against this stranger who claimed divine heritage. "You fight well," Hercules panted, circling again. "Better than most gods I've known. But you're still mortal. For all your enhancements, I can see it in you. The limits of flesh, even perfected flesh. And you," Lorgar replied, his golden eyes analytical even as he bled from a split lip, "are divine, truly divine. Not warp-touched, not psychically enhanced, but something older, something that predates even the oldest human myths." He straightened, and his expression shifted from warrior to scholar. "Tell me, Hercules of Olympus, what would you say if I told you that your gods are real, but that the emperor seeks to starve them of worship? That his imperial truth is meant to break the power of all divinities, yours included?" Hercules lowered his fists slowly. The question hung in the air between them, heavy with implications neither warrior could ignore. The plaza fell silent save for the ragged breathing of 2 warriors. Hercules stood perfectly still, his mind working through the implications of Lorgar's words. Around them, the word-bearers maintained their vigil, bolters ready but not raised. Above, Monarchia's golden spires caught the fading light, monuments to faith in an empire that claimed faith was poison. Starve them? Hercules' voice was low, dangerous. You speak of my father, of Athena, who guided me, of Hera, who tormented me. His fists clenched. They are many things, tyrants, schemers, petty and cruel, but they exist. They are real. And you tell me your emperor seeks to erase them through what? Denial? Lorgar wiped blood from his mouth, his expression caught between fascination and something darker. Doubt, perhaps, or recognition. The emperor teaches that gods are merely powerful beings in the warp, parasites that feed on human belief and emotion. Without worship, without faith, they weaken and die. The imperial truth is meant to free humanity from such chains. Free? The demigod's laugh was bitter. I know something of chains, priest king. I wore them when Hera's madness drove me to murder my own family. I earned my freedom through 12 labors, each one paid in blood and suffering. He stepped closer, and despite being shorter than the Primarch, his presence seemed to fill the space between them. But you cannot free humanity by lying to them. The gods exist whether you believe in them or not. Denying them only leaves people defenseless when the truth comes calling. Lorgar's eyes flickered with something. Pain? Recognition? The weight of questions he had carried since Colchis. Then what would you have us do? Bow to tyrants simply because they possess power? Accept their dominion because they cannot be denied? No. Hercules' response was immediate, absolute. You fight them, you resist them, you become strong enough that even gods must respect your will. He touched the Nemean lion pelt across his shoulders. But you do it with eyes open, acknowledging what they are. This imperial truth of yours, it's a pretty lie. And I've learned that pretty lies are the most dangerous kind. The Primarch was silent for a long moment, his superhuman mind processing implications that cut to the core of everything he had been taught. Around them, the word-bearers shifted uneasily. Such talk bordered on heresy against the Emperor's vision. You speak dangerously, demigod, Lorgar said quietly. The Emperor's truth has unified terror, brought compliance to thousands of worlds, ended countless religious wars and superstitious nightmares. Would you undo all that with your honesty? I speak what I know to be true. Hercules retrieved his club from where it had fallen, the olive wood warm in his grip. In my time, I served kings and emperors. I completed labors that seemed impossible, slew monsters that terrorized entire kingdoms. I did these things because I believed I was earning redemption, earning my place among the gods. His voice roughened. But the gods didn't care about redemption. They cared about control, about keeping mortals in their place. He met Lorgar's gaze directly. Your emperor sounds no different. A powerful being who demands obedience, who crafts warriors like you to enforce his will, who spreads his empire across the stars through conquest and compliance. Different methods, perhaps, more sophisticated weapons, but the same fundamental tyranny dressed in new clothes. The temperature in the plaza seemed to drop. Several word-bearers raised their bolters instinctively. Lorgar held up a hand, staying them, but his expression had hardened. "You judge what you do not understand, stranger. The Emperor unites humanity against the darkness, against Xenos horrors that would devour us, against the predations of the warp itself. His methods may be harsh, but they are necessary. Necessary." Hercules tasted the word like poison. Every tyrant claims necessity. Every conqueror justifies their empire. I've heard it from kings and gods alike. He planted his club against the shattered marble. But I've also learned this. True strength doesn't require lies. True leadership doesn't demand blind faith. And true gods. He paused, something painful crossing his features. True gods don't abandon their followers to suffer when their worship becomes inconvenient. Lorgar studied the demigod with new intensity. You speak from experience, from betrayal. Zeus was never there when I needed him most. The admission came quietly. Athena guided me, yes, but only when it served Olympus's interests. Hera tormented me for the crime of being born. The gods used me, priest king. They used me and called it destiny. His jaw tightened. So don't lecture me about necessity and the greater good. I've bled for the greater good. And I learned that it usually means sacrificing the innocent for the comfort of the powerful. The word-bearers exchanged glances. Such talk was heresy, pure and simple. Yet their gene-father did not strike the stranger down, did not order his immediate execution. Instead, Lorgar seemed considering. If you reject the Emperor's truth, and you reject your own gods, what do you believe in, Hercules? The demigod's answer came without hesitation. I believe in protecting the innocent, in standing against monsters, whether they wear scales or crowns or divine halos. I believe that strength is meant to serve, not to dominate. He gestured at the golden city around them. You've built something magnificent here. These people clearly worship your emperor. But what happens when that faith fails them? When the monsters come and your imperial truth offers no comfort, no hope? The legiones Astartes protect them, Lorgar replied. The imperial army guards them. The emperor's will shields them. And if the legiones Astartes aren't enough? If the emperor's will falters? Hercules shook his head. I've seen empires fall, priest king. I've watched cities burn and heroes fail. Faith alone isn't enough, but denying faith entirely leaves people hollow, empty, vulnerable. Before Lorgar could respond, a vox system crackled to life. A word-bearer's voice, tight with urgency. My lord, augur readings detect incoming vessels, legion signatures, multiple signatures. The Primarch's expression shifted instantly from philosopher to commander. Which legion? Ultramarines, my lord. And signatures match the 13th Primarch's flagship. Lorgar's face went pale beneath his bronze skin. Guilliman, here, now. with Hercules standing in the center of Monarchia, wounded and bleeding divine ichor, proving through his very existence that gods were real. The timing could not have been worse. The Ultramarines arrived like a blue tide of judgment, their thunderhawks screaming through Monarchia's atmosphere with military precision that would have impressed even Athena's strategists. Hercules watched from the plaza as the gunships descended in perfect formation, disgorging squads of ceramite-clad warriors whose movements spoke of discipline honed to an art form. These were different from Lorga's word-bearers, where the Sixth Legion carried themselves with the fervor of true believers. These Ultramarines radiated cold efficiency. Their armor was pristine, their weapons maintained with obsessive care, their deployment textbook perfect. And at their center, descending the ramp of the largest transport, came a figure that made even Hercules reassess his understanding of what this emperor had created. Robut Guilliman stood nearly as tall as Lorgar, but where the word-bearer carried himself like a priest-scholar, the Lord of Ultramar moved with the absolute confidence of a master tactician who had never encountered a problem he couldn't solve through reason and application of force. His blue armor gleamed, his aquila shone gold, and his eyes, those cold, analytical eyes, swept the plaza with calculating precision. They stopped on Hercules. "Lorgar," Guilliman's voice carried across the plaza, formal and clipped. "Explain the presence of this individual and why Monarchia's Vox channels are filled with reports of divine manifestations and combat between you and an unknown hostile." "He is not hostile, brother." Lorgar stepped forward, positioning himself subtly between Guilliman and Hercules. "His name is Hercules. He claims to be a demigod of ancient Terran mythology. Yes, I heard the reports." Guilliman's gaze never left Hercules, taking in the lion pelt, the club, the half-healed wounds that glowed faintly with golden light. "Clearly impossible, which means he is either a Xenos entity, a warp spawn, or a very sophisticated deception. Standard protocol is immediate quarantine and execution pending investigation." Hercules felt his temper, always his greatest weakness, begin to rise. "I am no one's prisoner, warlord, and I've had my fill of being judged by those who know nothing of what I am." "Then enlighten me." Guilliman descended the final steps, and Ultramarines fanned out in a perfect defensive perimeter. "You claim divinity. The Emperor has proven conclusively that gods are merely warp entities that feed on human belief. You appear wounded, which suggests mortality. You carry primitive weapons. The evidence suggests you are either delusional or deceiving my brother." He stopped 10 paces away, hand resting on the pommel of his power sword. "I have no patience for either." The demigod's laugh was sharp. "You speak of evidence and reason like they're shields against truth. I've met philosophers who thought they could logic away the divine. Most of them ended badly." He rolled his shoulders, testing the regeneration that had finally sealed his wounds. "But you want proof? Very well." Before either Primarch could react, Hercules gripped the nearest marble column, 10 feet of solid stone supporting one of Monarchia's smaller temples. His muscles bunched, divine strength flooding through limbs that had once held the weight of the heavens. He lifted. The column came free with a grinding crack, tons of carved marble rising as easily as a mortal might lift a spear. Hercules balanced it overhead for 3 heartbeats, then drove it point first into the plaza. The impact shattered flagstones in a 20-foot radius, sending cracks webbing through the street like lightning frozen in stone. "There's your evidence, Master of Reason." Sweat beaded on Hercules' brow. The effort had cost him more here than it would have in his own realm. But the demonstration was clear. "I am Hercules, son of Zeus, bearer of divine blood, not warp-touched, not Xenos, divine." Guilliman's expression didn't change, but his hand tightened on his sword. Impressive strength, but strength alone doesn't prove divinity, merely exceptional capability. His eyes narrowed. "Tell me, Hercules, if you are truly a god, why do you bleed? Why do bolter rounds wound you? Why does your regeneration function at merely enhanced rather than instantaneous rates?" The question cut deeper than any weapon. Hercules had felt it since arriving. The wrongness, the way his divine essence flickered and struggled in this alien reality. "This place," he gestured vaguely at the sky, at the city, at everything. "It's not my realm. The rules are different here. My father's lightning doesn't strike when called. Olympus feels distant, muffled." "Interesting." Guilliman glanced at Lorgar. "Brother, your assessment?" The word-bearer's expression was conflicted, caught between scholarly fascination and something else. Concern, perhaps, or recognition of dangerous truth. "He is genuine, Robut. I felt it when we fought. This is not warp taint. This is something older, something that predates even the Emperor's rise. He is what he claims to be, which makes him exceptionally dangerous." Guilliman's tactical mind was already processing scenarios, calculating threats. A being of genuine divine origin whose very existence contradicts the imperial truth. If word spreads that gods are real, that they can manifest physically, that the Emperor's teachings are provably false, he didn't need to finish the sentence. Both Primarchs understood the implications. "So you'll kill me to preserve your lie?" Hercules' hand moved to his club. "I've fought that battle before. Hera sent the Hydra, the lion, giants and monsters to end me. They all failed. I don't want to kill you." Guilliman's tone remained infuriatingly calm. "I want to understand you, to determine if you're a threat to the Imperium, or if you can be utilized. The Emperor values tools, and you are clearly a very effective tool." The word stung. Tool. Just like the gods had used him. Just like every king and emperor had used him, pointing him at monsters and enemies and calling it heroism. "I am no one's tool anymore," Hercules said quietly, dangerously. "Then what are you?" Lorgar asked, stepping forward. "You reject your gods. You reject our emperor. You stand alone in a universe that has no place for your kind of divinity. What will you do, Hercules? Where will you go?" Before the demigod could answer, the ground trembled. Not from any action of the 3 warriors, but from something else. Something approaching from beneath the city. The Ultramarines' Auspex arrays shrieked warnings. Vox channels erupted with panicked reports. Contact! Underground movement! Multiple signatures emerging from the catacombs! Guilliman's sword was in his hand instantly. What signatures? The response came with horrified clarity. Genestealer cult, my lord. Hundreds of them. They've been beneath Monarchia the entire time. Hercules grinned, a fierce expression that had preceded countless battles. Well then, warlords, it seems we have monsters to fight. Shall we debate philosophy later? The streets of Monarchia erupted into chaos as the Genestealers burst from hidden tunnels like a tide of chitin and claws. They had been there all along, festering beneath the Golden City, waiting for the moment when the word-bearer's vigilance was focused elsewhere. Now they came. Hybrids twisted by Xenos corruption, pure-strain Genestealers moving with horrifying speed, and behind them, the psychic scream of a broodlord calling its children to slaughter. Hercules didn't hesitate. 3,000 years of combat instinct overrode philosophy and politics. He saw civilians scattering in terror, saw children being separated from parents, saw the kind of innocent suffering that had always ignited his fury. His club sang through the air, catching a pure stream Genestealer mid-leap and reducing it to shattered exoskeleton and purple ichor. "Protect the people!" he roared, already moving toward a family trapped against a temple wall. Two hybrids closed on them, their borrowed human faces twisted with alien hunger. Hercules reached them first, grabbing one by its extra limbs and using it as a weapon to bludgeon the second. Both went down in a tangle of broken chitin. Behind him, the Primarchs reacted with the split-second coordination of warriors bred for exactly this kind of crisis. Ultramarines, establish defensive perimeter around civilian sectors. Guilliman's orders cut through the Vox with absolute clarity. Tactical Squad Fortis, suppress the eastern breach. Devastators, provide covering fire. Move. The Ultramarines deployed with machine precision, bolter fire creating a wall of explosive death between the Genestealers and the fleeing citizens. But there were so many of the Xenos, pouring from a dozen breaches, and Monarchia's streets had become a maze of golden architecture that favored the ambush predators. Lorgar's response was different, more personal, more furious. The word-bearers had built this city as an act of faith, and now it was being desecrated by Xenos filth. His Crozius Maul ignited with power field energy as he waded into the swarm, each swing reducing Genestealers to smoking corpses. Around him, his sons chanted litanies of hate, their faith transforming into violence. And in the center of it all, Hercules fought like the hero he had always been. A brood of hybrids tried to flank him. He spun, his club moving in arcs that would have seemed impossible for its weight, and each impact sent Xenos bodies flying. A pure strain leaped for his throat. He caught it one-handed, squeezed until its skull cracked, and threw the corpse into two more that were approaching. His divine strength, diminished though it was in this alien realm, still exceeded anything the Genestealers had evolved to counter. But there were so many. A rending claw scored across his back, cutting through the Nemean lion pelt, the first time anything in this universe had managed that feat. Hercules roared, more in surprise than pain, and backhanded the genestealer hard enough to embed it in a marble wall. Another claw raked his leg, drawing divine blood. Another caught his shoulder. They were learning, adapting, coordinating their attacks to exploit the brief moments when even his supernatural reflexes couldn't cover every angle. "Demigod!" Guilliman's voice cut across the battle. "Your left flank!" Hercules pivoted to see 6 pure strains converging in perfect synchronization, their movements guided by the Broodlord's psychic directives. He wouldn't be fast enough to block them all. But then blue ceramite filled his peripheral vision, and Reboot Guilliman was there, his power sword carving through Xenos flesh with clinical precision. "Don't mistake tactical cooperation for approval," the Primarch said, dispatching the last genestealer with a thrust through its primary heart. "But I won't let a potentially valuable asset die to Xenos filth." "Your concern is touching," Hercules grunted, crushing another hybrid skull. "Where's the leader? These things coordinate too well. There's something directing them." The Broodlord. Lorgar appeared beside them, his golden armor splattered with purple ichor. "I can feel its psychic presence. There." He pointed toward the Grand Cathedral, where the golden spires reached toward the sky. "It's taken position in the highest sanctum, desecrating the most holy place in Monarchia." Guilliman's tactical assessment was instant. Fortified position, high ground, likely defended by the strongest specimens. Standard doctrine would be orbital bombardment, but collateral damage would be extensive. "No," Lorgar's voice held absolute conviction. "We take it ourselves. That cathedral represents everything I've built here. I will not see it reduced to rubble." "Then we go." Hercules started forward, but Guilliman's hand on his shoulder stopped him. "Not without coordination. The Broodlord will have surrounded itself with the most dangerous specimens. We need a plan." "I have a plan," Hercules said. "I walk in and kill it." Despite the situation, Guilliman's expression showed the faintest trace of exasperation. "That's not a plan. That's barely a strategy. That's suicide. I've walked into the underworld and returned master tactician. I've faced the Hydra with poisoned arrows, wrestled Antaeus until I understood his trick, held the weight of the sky while Atlas retrieved the golden apples." Hercules met both Primarch's gazes. "I don't need elaborate strategy. I need a clear path to the monster and the strength to end it. The first, your warriors can provide. The second, I've always had." Lorgar and Guilliman exchanged glances. The kind of wordless communication that passed between brothers who had fought together for decades. Some decision passed between them. "Very well," Guilliman said. "But we do this my way. Ultramarines provide suppressing fire and clear the lower levels. Word-bearers form a secondary line to prevent reinforcement. The 3 of us advance to the sanctum as a spearhead. 3 demigods against 1 Xenos horror." Lorgar added with grim humor. "It should be sufficient." 2 demigods and 1 very effective tool," Hercules corrected with a sharp grin. "Let's not pretend you've accepted what I am, Warlord." "I accept that you're effective in combat," Guilliman replied. "That's sufficient for now. Questions of divinity can wait until after we've exterminated this infestation." They moved as one, Three warriors from vastly different origins united by the immediate necessity of violence. Ultramarines and word-bearers carved a path through the Xenos swarm, their combined firepower overwhelming even the Genestealer's numbers. Hercules moved at their center, his club rising and falling with mechanical efficiency, each strike a death sentence. The grand cathedral loomed above them, its golden facade now stained with Xenos corruption. From within came the psychic howl of the Broodlord, calling its children to defend their patriarch. The doors burst open, and a wall of chitin and claws poured forth. Hercules hit them like a battering ram. His charge carried him through the first rank, divine strength converting momentum into devastating impact. Genestealers flew like leaves before a storm. Behind him, both Primarchs followed, their weapons singing hymns of death. They fought their way upstairs, slick with ichor, through halls where purer strains dropped from ceiling alcoves, past chambers where hybrids made desperate last stands. And finally, they reached the sanctum. The Broodlord waited at the altar, massive, ancient, its psychic presence beating against their minds like waves against stone. It had chosen this place deliberately, corrupting the most sacred space in Monarchia as its final insult. Around it, a dozen pure strains crouched in defensive postures. The Broodlord's 4 eyes fixed on Hercules, and when it spoke, the words formed directly in his mind with hateful clarity. Godling, you do not belong here. This universe will consume you. Hercules smiled, bloody and fierce. Let it try. The Broodlord's psychic assault hit like a tidal wave, crashing against Hercules' mind with force meant to paralyze and destroy. It had broken the will of imperial commanders, reduced hardened soldiers to gibbering wrecks, dominated the thoughts of thousands. But divine consciousness, forged in the fires of Olympian intrigue and tempered by millennia of divine manipulation, was not so easily conquered. Hercules felt the pressure, the alien hunger trying to worm its way into his thoughts, and he pushed back with the sheer stubborn will that had let him endure 12 impossible labors. "I've resisted Hera's madness," he growled, advancing through the psychic assault. "Your mind tricks are nothing." The purest strains launched themselves forward in perfect synchronization, 12 bodies moving as extensions of the Broodlord's will. They came at all 3 warriors simultaneously, testing defenses, seeking weakness. This was no mindless swarm. This was coordinated execution by apex predators guided by ancient intelligence. Guillemon's tactical genius manifested instantly. "Lorgar, left flank. Hercules, center press. I'll suppress the right." The Primarch's power sword carved through chitin with surgical precision, each strike eliminating a threat with minimal wasted motion. He fought like a master chess player, 3 moves ahead, positioning himself to control the battlefield's geometry. Lorgar's Crozius Maul sang with power field energy, each impact accompanied by litanies of faith that seemed to burn the air itself. Despite the Emperor's imperial truth, despite the doctrine that denied gods, the word-bearer fought with the fury of a true believer defending his temple. Lightning arced from his weapon, reducing Xenos flesh to ash, and Hercules fought like the hero he had always been, direct, brutal, unstoppable. His club shattered carapaces and pulped organs. When a pure strain got inside his guard, he dropped the weapon and tore the creature apart with his bare hands, divine strength ripping through bioengineered perfection like parchment. Golden ichor mixed with Xenos purple as wounds accumulated and healed, his regeneration struggling against the volume of damage but refusing to fail. "The Brood Lord!" Lorgar shouted. "It's preparing something!" The Patriarch's psychic presence was building, gathering power for a devastating attack. Its 4 arms spread wide, rending claws gleaming, and the air around it shimmered with psionic energy that made even the Primarch's enhanced minds ache. Hercules didn't think, didn't calculate, didn't plan. He charged. The remaining pure strains tried to intercept him, but he bulled through them, accepting wounds that would have killed lesser beings. Claws raked his chest, tore his arms, cut deep furrows in his legs. He didn't stop, couldn't stop. This was what he was made for, the impossible confrontation, the monster that had to be faced regardless of cost. The Brood Lord's psychic blast caught him mid-charge, trying to crush his mind and stop his heart simultaneously. Pain exploded through his consciousness, alien and wrong, trying to unweave the very essence of what made him divine. For a moment, Hercules felt himself faltering, felt the terrible possibility that this universe might finally be too much, that even gods could die in the 41st millennium. Then he remembered his children's faces, the family he had murdered in madness, the innocent blood on his hands that had driven him to accept the 12 labors in the first place. He had spent 3,000 years atoning. He would not fail another innocent, not here, not ever again. Divine will, forged in the crucible of guilt and redemption, shattered the psychic attack. Hercules roared, a sound of pure defiant rage that echoed through the sanctum and closed the final distance. His hands locked around the Broodlord's throat, his grip fueled by strength that had once held back the pillars of heaven. The Patriarch's 4 arms struck simultaneously, rending claws carving deep into Hercules' torso. Ribs cracked. Organs tore. Divine blood poured across the sanctum floor in rivers of gold and red. But the demigod didn't let go. His hands tightened, crushing Xenos cartilage and alien anatomy. "I've killed gods," Hercules snarled through blood-filled lungs. "You're just another monster." The Broodlord's psychic scream was a dying star imploding, a wave of telepathic agony that sent both Primarchs staggering. But Hercules held on, his divine essence anchoring him against the psychic death throes. His hands crushed deeper, breaking through exoskeleton to the vital organs beneath. With a final, convulsive wrench, he tore the Broodlord's head from its body. The psychic backlash when the Patriarch died was catastrophic. Every Genestealer in Monarchia felt their guiding intelligence snuffed out, their coordination shattered, their purpose dissolved. They became merely animals, dangerous animals, but without the terrifying unity that had made them nearly unstoppable. Hercules collapsed to his knees, still holding the Broodlord's severed head. His wounds were catastrophic. Even his divine regeneration was struggling with damage this severe. Golden light flickered weakly around the worst injuries. divine essence fighting to knit flesh back together in an alien universe that didn't quite know how to accommodate Olympian physiology. Guilliman was beside him instantly, his expression shifting from tactical assessment to something almost approaching concern. "You're critically wounded. Those injuries would kill a space marine." "Not a space marine," Hercules managed, blood on his lips. "Demigod takes more than Xenos to kill me." He dropped the Broodlord's head and used his club to lever himself upright, swaying but refusing to fall. "Is it done? The innocent?" "Safe," Lorgar confirmed, his voice quiet with something that might have been reverence. "Your charge gave us the opening we needed. The remaining Janus stealers are being systematically eliminated. The city is secure." "Good." Hercules' legs finally gave out, and he sat heavily on the sanctum steps, his back against a pillar carved with images of the god emperor. The irony wasn't lost on him, a demigod of Olympus resting beneath symbols of a ruler who denied divinity existed. "That's good." Guilliman studied him with those calculating blue eyes. And when he spoke, his tone had shifted from dismissive to contemplative. "You fought well, recklessly, inefficiently, with complete disregard for personal safety, but effectively. You prioritized civilian protection over tactical advantage and still managed to eliminate the primary threat." He paused. "I may have misjudged you, Hercules." "Most people do," the demigod replied, wincing as his ribs began to knit themselves back together with agonizing slowness. "They see the strength, the violence, and assume I'm just a weapon, a tool, as you said." His eyes met the Primarch's. "But I choose what I fight for. Always have. That's what makes me different from your space marines, master tactician. They're bred to serve. I serve because I choose to." Lorgar knelt beside him, his golden eyes intense. "And what will you choose now, Hercules? The Emperor will hear of this. He will want to meet you, to understand you, perhaps to use you as Robut suggested. You stand at a crossroads, ally with the Imperium, strike out alone, or," he trailed off, but the implication was clear, "or become an enemy." Hercules looked at the Broodlord's corpse, at the Xenos blood painting the sanctum, at the two Primarchs who represented the pinnacle of their father's vision. Then he looked beyond them, through the shattered cathedral doors, to where Monarchia's citizens were emerging from hiding, frightened, grateful, alive. "I need time," he said finally, "to heal, to understand this universe you've brought me to decide if your Imperium is worth serving or if it's just another Olympus, beautiful on the surface, rotten beneath." He managed a tired smile. "Besides, I'm told your Emperor is coming to Monarchia soon. Lorgar seems nervous about that." "Something about judgment?" The word-bearer's expression darkened, confirming what Hercules had suspected. There was more happening here than a simple Janus stealer infestation. Political currents ran deep, and he'd stumbled into something significant. "Then you'll stay," Guilliman stated. It wasn't quite a question. "For now," Hercules agreed. "But understand this, both of you, I am not your tool, not your weapon, not your trophy to parade before your emperor. I am Hercules, son of Zeus, and I will make my own choices. If your imperium proves worthy, I'll stand with you. If not," he shrugged, a gesture that sent pain lancing through half-healed wounds. "Well, I've fought empires before." 3 days later, the emperor arrived at Monarchia. Hercules stood in the grand cathedral, now cleansed of Xenos taint, and watched as the master of mankind walked through golden streets. He had ordered built past monuments to his divinity that contradicted everything his imperial truth proclaimed. The demigod felt the emperor's presence like the sun itself, a psychic weight that dwarfed anything Olympus had ever produced. But Hercules had stood before Zeus, had defied Hera, had bargained with Hades in the underworld itself. He did not kneel. When the emperor's golden eyes finally found him, found the divine essence that shouldn't exist, the living proof that gods were real, something passed between them. Recognition, perhaps, or challenge. The emperor who denied divinity faced the demigod who embodied it, and neither looked away. "You are an anomaly," the emperor said, his voice resonating with power that could rewrite reality itself. A remnant of old myths that should have faded with the age of strife. "And yet, here I stand," Hercules replied quietly. "Bleeding, wounded, diminished, but real. As real as you are, whatever you truly are beneath that golden light." The emperor's expression was unreadable. "We will speak further, Hercules of Olympus. There are questions to be answered, decisions to be made." "There always are," the demigod agreed. "But know this, emperor of mankind, I've served tyrants and kings, gods and monsters. I've learned to recognize the difference between necessary strength and simple tyranny." His hand tightened on his club. "Which are you? That's what I intend to discover." Behind them, Monarchia waited, beautiful, faithful, and doomed in ways neither demigod nor emperor could yet foresee. The 41st millennium had room for one more legend, one more warrior caught between divine heritage and mortal choice. Whether that legend would be written in triumph or tragedy remained to be seen. The Emperor protects. More stories await. If you enjoyed the ride through the grimdark, feel free to subscribe to this channel, like the video, and turn on notifications. You'll get an alert every day at 6 p.m. EST when new stories drop. Your support helps keep these tales alive in a universe where hope is in short supply.